There's a guy in your family that everyone calls the rich one, right? That uncle who shows up to Sunday barbecues with a brand new car, shiny watch, talking about international trips. Everyone's impressed. The kids want to be like him when they grow up. The adults feel a little jealous. But what if I told you that guy is completely broke, that he doesn't even have $10 in his bank account? The story I'm about to tell you is real, and it might completely change the way you see money and success. This is the story of Eduardo. I'm not using his real name for obvious reasons, but everything you're about to hear actually happened. In the family, Eduardo was known as the rich uncle, the guy who always had money, always helped others, always had the best things. But behind that perfect image, there was a dark secret no one imagined. A secret that eventually destroyed not only his life, but affected dozens of people around him. And the craziest part? It all started without him even realizing it. A small snowball that turned into a massive avalanche. Before we begin, you need to understand one thing. This might be happening to someone you know right now. Or worse, it might be happening to you. Eduardo started working at 18. Normal job, normal salary, normal life. He still lived with his parents, so he didn't have many expenses. He could save a little money each month. Nothing crazy, but he had a small cushion. When he turned 22, something changed everything. He got his first credit card, a $600 limit. For someone making about $300 a month, that felt like a lot of money. And that's where the problem began. Eduardo looked at that card and thought, man, I've got $600 extra now. But he didn't. It was debt, borrowed money. But in his head, it was instant buying power. His first big purchase was a TV. A huge, beautiful TV he had been dreaming about for months. It cost $500. He swiped the card without thinking twice. After all, he could split it into 12 installments, about $40 a month. Easy. And it was easy at first. But when that TV arrived, something happened. His friends came over and were impressed. Dude, that's an awesome TV. You must be doing well. Eduardo liked that. He liked being seen as successful, as someone who had money, as someone who had made it. Then came the second card, then the third. Credit card companies love people who pay on time, so they kept raising their limits. Within 2 years, Eduardo had 6 different cards with a combined limit of $8,000. $8,000 for a guy making less than $400. You can already see where this is going. At 25, Eduardo decided to move out of his parents' house. He rented an apartment in a decent neighborhood, nothing luxurious, but nice. The problem, now he had rent, electricity, water, internet, groceries. The salary that used to be enough suddenly wasn't. But he didn't want to lower his lifestyle, so he started using his credit cards to fill the gap. Clothes on the card, dinners out on the card, gas for the car on the card, everything in installments, always installments. And here's the most dangerous thing about credit. When you pay everything in installments, you completely lose track of how much you owe. Eduardo had payments from 15 different purchases happening at the same time. He didn't even remember what half of them were for. He just knew he had to pay the bills each month. And those bills started getting heavy, really heavy. By 27, he was paying about $600 a month just on credit cards. He made around $700. That left $100 to survive the entire month. Impossible, right? So what did he do? He paid the minimum on some cards and used the limit on others to cover basic expenses. He had entered the vicious cycle, using debt to pay debt. And the interest? It was eating him alive. But Eduardo thought he had a solution. He discovered personal loans, took out a $4,000 loan to pay off the cards. On paper, it made sense. Combine everything into one payment with lower interest. The problem, as soon as he paid off the cards, the limits were free again. And Eduardo couldn't resist. Within 6 months, the cards were maxed out again, and now he also had the loan to pay. That's when the family started seeing Eduardo as the rich uncle. Why? Because he never said no.
Someone needed to borrow money? Eduardo lent it. Wanted an expensive gift? Eduardo bought it. Family barbecue? Eduardo brought the best meat and drinks. At Christmas, his gifts were always the best. The kids loved Uncle Eduardo. The adults respected him. Everyone thought he was swimming in money. The truth? Eduardo was drowning in debt. But he couldn't stop, because every compliment, every look of admiration, every moment of impressing someone fed his ego. It made him feel important, successful, valued. And he was willing to pay any price for that feeling. Literally, any price. By 30, Eduardo had over $20,000 in debt. Maxed out cards, 3 loans, overdraft at the limit. He made about $800 a month, but owed more than 25 times his salary. Interest alone ate half his income. He started missing bills. First internet, then electricity. Collection calls came every day. But at family gatherings, there was Eduardo, smiling, wearing brand-name clothes, talking about a trip to Cancun he was planning. He couldn't pay rent properly, but posted travel plans on Instagram, because image was everything. He would rather go hungry at home than look broke in front of others. Things got so bad that Eduardo started borrowing from loan sharks. Yes, illegal lenders with brutal interest and not-so-legal collection methods. He borrowed $2,000 to stop his power from being cut. The interest was 10% a month. He'd have to pay back $3,200 in 6 months. But he wasn't thinking long-term. He just wanted the immediate fire put out. Then he started borrowing from family. Hey, can you lend me $400? Small issue, I'll pay you next week. Next week never came. He owed his parents, siblings, cousins, everyone, always with a good excuse. Money tied up in an investment, bank issue, client hasn't paid, lie after lie. One time his mother needed surgery. She didn't have all the money. Eduardo offered to pay $1,000. The family was emotional. What an amazing son! What they didn't know, he borrowed that money from another loan shark. His mother only found out much later, when those lenders started calling her house looking for him. His double life was insane. In front of people, he was successful. Behind closed doors, he lived in constant panic. He couldn't sleep, had anxiety attacks. Some days he thought about disappearing, driving to another city and starting over. But he knew the debts would still exist, and he was terrified of disappointing his family. Ironic, right? He was financially destroying the family, yet afraid of disappointing them. The turning point came one Sunday, family barbecue. Eduardo arrived in a brand new imported sedan. Everyone ran to see it. "Eduardo, you bought this? How much was it?" He smiled proudly. "Got a good deal. Long financing, small payments." More lies. He had borrowed the down payment from 2 loan sharks. The installments were over $600 a month. He had no way to pay. At that barbecue, his younger brother Lucas, 23, pulled him aside. "Man, I want to be like you. You got everything you ever wanted. How do you do it?" And something broke inside Eduardo. He looked at his little brother, the one he loved most, and realized he was being a terrible example, teaching him that success meant owning things, that happiness came from appearances, that it was worth drowning in debt to impress people. For the first time in years, Eduardo told the truth. He told Lucas everything. Lucas was in shock. "But everyone thinks you're rich." Eduardo replied with a sentence that stuck forever. "I'm rich, rich in debt, rich in lies, rich in sleepless nights, but real money, I don't have any." That night, Eduardo went home and did something he should have done years earlier. He wrote down every single debt, card by card, loan by loan, loan shark by loan shark, family member by family member. Total, $37,000.
He felt the ground disappear under his feet. He considered giving up completely, but then he remembered Lucas. "I can't let my brother fall into this trap. I have to get out, not for me, for him." Eduardo sold the car, at a loss, of course, but enough to pay the loan sharks. He sold the giant TV, the laptop, everything valuable. He left the apartment and moved back in with his parents at 31 years old. Humiliating, but necessary. He told the family everything. It was the hardest conversation of his life. Disappointment, tears, anger,
Some people felt betrayed, but some supported him. His mother, despite everything, said she'd help him recover. Eduardo started therapy. He learned the problem wasn't just money, it was self-esteem, the need for validation, trying to fill an emotional void with material things. It all traced back to being bullied as the poor kid in school. When he finally had access to credit, he tried to prove he wasn't that kid anymore. He proved it so hard he destroyed himself. Recovery took 4 years. He negotiated every debt, accepted having bad credit, lived extremely simply, no cards, only cash. No eating out, no new clothes. Every extra dollar went to debt. Painful? Yes, but every paid debt felt like freedom. Today, 7 years after that barbecue, Eduardo lives completely differently. He has a car, used, paid in cash, rents a small apartment, has savings, an emergency fund. He's not rich, but he's free. And freedom is worth more than any illusion of wealth. Lucas learned without suffering. He lives simply, saves, invests. Whenever he sees someone starting to drown in debt to impress others, he tells his brother's story. How many people has that story saved? Impossible to know, but definitely more than one. The lesson is simple and powerful. Real success isn't what you show others, it's what you build for yourself. A new car means nothing if you're buried in debt. Pretty Instagram photos don't pay rent. People admire you for 5 minutes. Debt never forgets you. Eduardo says today, "I'd rather look poor and have money in the bank than look rich and have nothing." We live in a world obsessed with appearances. Social media is all about showing. The expensive clothes, fancy restaurants, international trips. No one shows the overdue bills, the collection calls, the stress. That's where the danger is. Many people are living exactly like Eduardo did, spending money they don't have to impress people who don't truly care. Because let's be honest, people who admire you for what you own aren't real friends. Real friends value who you are. Real family prefers you happy and at peace, not suffering just to look successful. Easy credit is a trap. Banks know it. Card companies know it. Credit card interest rates in Brazil can exceed 300% per year. You borrow $1,000 and end up owing $4,000. It's insane. But people only think, I can split it into 10 payments. It's not cheap. It becomes brutally expensive. Eduardo now gives financial education talks in schools, companies, churches. He shares his story without shame, because if his story saves even one person from that hell, it's worth it, and it's already saved many. If you saw yourself in this story, if your cards are maxed out, if you're borrowing to pay other debts, if you're living above your means to impress others, stop. Now, before it turns into a giant snowball like it did for Eduardo. Sit down, do the math, face the numbers, start fixing it. It will hurt, it will be hard, but it's better to suffer a little now cutting expenses than suffer for years drowning in debt. And if you're not in that situation yet, learn from others. Live within your means, save money, build an emergency fund. And when you feel tempted to buy something expensive just to impress someone, remember Eduardo. Appearances don't pay bills. Luxury doesn't bring happiness. The shine of a new car fades. Debt stays.